one of the most important elements to get two disparate groups to work together is to have them spend time and spend effort to understand the other side and understand what's good about them and come to a middle ground where both entities can benefit. And then one important thing that needs to be in that mix is trust. Both entities need to learn to trust the other one.
So I want to go to your startup experience and how it intersects a little bit with corporations. So often once you've solved these cultural issues, if you can, once you've decided to innovate, drive change, you actually have to go look for partners. You have to go look for technology. You have to go look for business models, whatever it might be. And so we find corporations looking to startups. I love it. I love it when an up and coming innovative startup meets its match in a corporation or an enterprise that needs its tech, that needs its energy, and has the distribution access and scale to bring it to the market. But it's not always that easy, is it? And so I'm wondering, can you share any thoughts or insights you have on what it looks like when corporations and startups come together and when maybe two very different innovation worlds come together?
Yeah, absolutely. I can actually talk about it with an example when I was in the corporate side where we acquired a startup. Okay. And then I can also talk about it from the side where I was in a startup trying to work with a large corporate. So let's take the example of being in a corporate and working with a startup, right? Um, I was working in a large telco equipment company. And given that our customers required um, SLAs of 99.9% uptime, everything we developed, we made sure that it wouldn't fail. And we did 6 months of testing, 1 year of testing, right? Then we acquired a startup company that had technology that would complement our product line. And this was a scrappy startup. They didn't have all the testing resources, all the people to do a year's worth of testing. And so they would want to launch their products after only like a month or 2 months of testing because they were scrappy. Their attitude was, "Hey, let's launch it. If it doesn't work, we'll identify the problems and we'll fix it." And you got the small company which is scrappy, which can make mistakes because the consequences would not be so big. While a large company, if they do the equipment and it isn't up and running 99.9%, they can be fined millions of dollars. And and so that was very fun exercise sitting in those meetings and both sides being so frustrated at each other, where the corporates are like, "You guys are so sloppy, you don't do things thoroughly," while the startups are like, "You're so bureaucratic, you don't move forward." And it had to come to an understanding where both sides understood why the other why the other entity behaved the way they did and come to a compromise. So maybe instead of testing for a whole year, we compromised for testing for 6 months, right? But it was a lot of one of the most important elements to get two disparate groups to work together is to have them spend time and spend effort to understand the other side and understand what's good about them and come to a middle ground where both entities can benefit. And then one important thing that needs to be in that mix is trust. you know Both entities need to learn to trust the other one and trust that you're on the same page trying to achieve the same thing, albeit maybe different approaches. Okay, so that's the example I have of a corporate being in the corporate side acquiring a startup. Meanwhile, after I joined a startup, I we were a small mobile platform startup, and we were trying to partner with a large telco company, right? And we were supposed to present with them at a big investor event, and I had to prepare the marketing materials and the content so that we could present at this large company's um, shareholder meeting or investor meeting. And I was supposed to work with a marketing director from the large telco company. And I could not get any time for her. I mean, she was in Chicago, I was in California. I kept sending emails, calling, when can we set up a meeting? And she never had time. Okay. So finally, I just got on a plane and went to her office and sat outside her office so I could catch her. And she was actually a very nice person. She she wasn't trying to be difficult, but she said, "Gigi, come in. Look at my schedule." And she was booked in half-hour increments from 8 till 6 every day. She basically sat in meetings. And I'm like, geez. She goes, I just don't have any time to squeeze you in. Okay. One question goes through my head. Do you really have to be in all those meetings? But that's not for me to say. But the other thing is, we finally agreed that I'd come in, we'd both come in at 7 a.m. and where she didn't have a meeting, and we would spend an hour together. Okay. And so, the thing that start corporates need to understand is startups don't have that much runway. They don't have billions of dollars behind them, you know, to fund them, to fund salaries. It's like if we don't generate revenues as a startup, we don't have the money to pay our people or pay their health benefits. So we need to move fast. A lot of times large companies have the protection, and they can then wallow in bureaucracy and not get things done because there's a big cushion behind them. And so in that case was having me understand that she was mired in corporate bureaucracy, and how do I work with her so that be flexible so that it supports her and we can both reach our common goal.
Well, and that point of common goal, like that's a common thread between both sides of those stories you gave, right? Like you're on the same team. You need to understand each other, and there does have to be a little bit of adaptation in both on both sides to make it work. But when you've both realized you're on the same team, that can make it easier. And it's funny. Like we think of we think of these we think of innovation as deep technology. We think of it, and then sometimes it is. We think of it as brilliant new ideas popping onto the scene. They're going to change the world. Sometimes just people from two very different contexts agreeing that they're tackling the same problem together and treating each other as people.
Yeah, I mean that's what
It's like,
I mean, and that's a part of the fundamentals of a growth mindset is about building the trust, so that you trust that the other person and yourself are striving for a common goal. And I feel like, you know, in many cases, people are striving for a common goal. They have different approaches, and and an important part of trust is to acknowledge that there might be different approaches, to listen and understand it, and then together extract like the best way, maybe taking elements of both approaches.
it's I makes it makes it. I mean, look, it makes so much sense.